Unlock the secrets of franchising success with the Franchise Life podcast. Hosted by Stacie Shannon. Join us for expert insights, success stories, and practical tips every week. Subscribe now and take your franchise journey to the next level.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Life. Today our guest is Erica Secre, and she is the franchise business coach with Lime Painting. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you, Stacie. How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, since joining Lime Painting as their VP of Franchise Development, I have truly come to appreciate the role that you play from the corporate level standpoint. So before we jump into that, do you mind just sharing a little bit about your background and how that led you to Lime?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to share some insights about Lime Painting, my role, and how I support our franchise partners. Prior to Lime Painting, I was actually in beauty brands. So I have experienced a plethora of franchise brands ranging from European Wax Center, Waxing the City, some health and fitness brands like Stretch Lab and Orange Theory. So I've definitely dabbled a little bit more in the health and fitness sectors, but nonetheless, all within the franchise industry. So I love the franchise model. I truly understand it. I've worked different positions from literally entry-level sales to upper management, area management, regional development. So the way I basically ended up as a business coach was by being successful as GM, typically in a lot of these brands, executing the systems and performing well. Other franchise owners, partners would often reach out to me and ask me, hey, can you coach my GM, or can you come shadow our location and share with us what you're doing differently? So organically, my role, my career over time developed more into a coaching role and sharing best practices and motivation and accountability and some of the basic principles that made me really successful in these other brands. So it's kind of a high level synopsis of where I've been and how I got here.
Awesome. So the first time we met Erica was at a Lime Meet the Team Day, where that is where a prospective franchise owner will come to the headquarters in Denver, Colorado, and they will meet the entire operational team that will be supporting them. So, my first exposure to you, I was so impressed. And I do feel after having exposure to hundreds of different franchise brands through my consulting business, I truly do believe that Lime goes that extra distance in supporting their franchise owners. So my question to you is, when a franchise owner comes on board with Lime, post Meet the Team Day, they've signed their franchise agreement, what does that next step look like, and how do you get involved?
Great question. So for starters, we get the franchise partners enrolled in what we call the GOCL, which stands for Grand Opening Checklist. So it's a step-by-step comprehensive plan for the franchise partners to onboard with the brand. So that's everything from, foundational business things, their funding, all of the, behind the scenes type of work, to handing them off to coaching with me, where we plan their recruitment strategy, where we set goals from very early on. So we have an understanding of what the infrastructure will look like for the franchise partner. So I am on those grand opening checklist calls with my partner, Jade Wynn, who is our director of finance and admin. So she kind of kicks off that relationship, and I shadow these calls. I'm available for more operational and mentorship support. And then once the owner has completed their GOCL, I take them into my sector. And so I onboard them as far as training goes, making sure that they're trained on technology, that they are they go through what we call our boot camp. So we have 3 levels of boot camp at Lime Painting. The first is our visual reality consultant boot camp. So VRC, and that's our sales position. So all franchise partners learn every aspect of that role in that business, whether they are owner operator or semi absentee, so that they can truly understand their business. The second layer is the owner boot camp, and that's going to be, again, that goal setting, understanding their P&Ls, what they should be focusing on in their first 6 weeks, recruiting, etc. And then phase 3 is GM boot camp. So as an owner operator, you would essentially be your own GM, or if you're semi-absentee, you would be hiring a GM. Either way, you need to understand how to hold your team accountable, execute meetings, how to pull your KPIs and analyze your business. So I take the owners through all 3 levels of that. And beyond the boot camps, I have monthly workshops around closing sales, follow-up, recruiting. So we have different focuses every month. So we really try to educate the partners and then support them along the way.
Wow, that is incredible. So, I cannot tell you how many times when I've presented home services brands, and I love that Lime is a painting brand, because this is one concept that I have had so many people say, I can start a painting business. Why do I need to invest in a franchise? And everything that you just described, from the support and the coaching and onboarding, is exactly why people invest in a franchise system. All right. So let me ask you this. You run across many different personality types. When an individual goes through the discovery process with Lime, Lime is evaluating them just as the prospect is evaluating the brand for an investment. How do you, from a coaching style perspective, how do you deal with the different personality types to meet them right where they're at?
Well, there's 2 parts to that in my experience. Is there's objective and subjective. So objectively, we run all of our partners, all of our sales associates, any personnel at all that joins Lime goes through our culture index assessment. So it's a personality assessment that really breaks down who you are. So I always tell candidates, whoever's taking this culture index, there's no right or wrong answer. We're just trying to get a read for who you are, like fundamentally as a person, and also how you adjust and perform in the workplace. So they're actually pretty dang accurate. There's not been one person that's seen their results and said that's so off, right? So it'll categorize your personality. There's major buckets that we look at. So there's, for example, like social personalities versus technical personalities. And I won't bore you with all that, but we already from very early on have an understanding of how you're wired. So that's a really good starting point for me. And when I say subjectively, that's where, people skills really kick in, and where my personality profile is a persuader, which is a social based personality. And I bring that up because we're really driven by relationships. So that is my strategy with coaching, is building relationships. It's always been my strategy. And maybe strategy is the wrong word. That's just how I'm wired. That's my intention, is to build relationships with franchise partners, employees, get to understand who they are, where they've been, and where they want to get to. So really asking those hard questions and getting really clear on what their goals are. And that's what I focus on. If your goal is to open a library in 10 years, I'm going to find out. So then everything we do aligns to your goals. That's what's important, is finding out the why of why did the franchise partner buy into Lime? Why did they choose a franchise? Why did they choose entrepreneurship? So those are the two parts I focus on, is just, objectively understanding who they are, and subjectively getting a feel for who they are, and again, where they want to get to.
That is so powerful. For new business owners, especially, something that can be really intimidating is the hiring and the retaining of employees. And, certainly, if it's an owner operator, they're going to be hiring one or two employees. If it's more of a semi-passive or empire builder type of investor, then they're going to be hiring many, or I shouldn't say many, but more employees from the onset. And then you have the subcontractor aspect for those individuals who are actually going to be executing the work. So, can you dive in a little bit more into the assistance that you provide from a recruitment standpoint?
Absolutely. So one thing I definitely pride myself in is my experience with recruitment in all these franchise brands. Um, for starters, it's not exclusive to just Lime as far as the recruitment challenges. They exist in every single brand. Everyone talks about, 2024 and post-pandemic and all of the problems with hiring and retention. So I think having that real world application, that experience, really helps the franchise partners trust in my guidance. So, we understand that there's going to be turnover. It's inevitable. But if we can, reduce that number, that percentage of turnover, we're going to do it as a team. So I have a recruitment SOP. It's 7 pages, and not just 7 pages. There's hyperlinks within hyperlinks. So so many tools that I've built out for the franchise partners. So even if you come from a background of never hiring, or maybe you're a pro, this tool is going to be a step-by-step guide for you so that you feel prepared to recruit. So that's step one to have success in recruitment, is being prepared. Everything from, what kind of candidates am I looking for? How do I screen this resume? How do I do a phone interview? How do I conduct an in-person interview? What questions matter? How do I rate this interview? How do I extend a job offer? Every detail of the recruitment process is 100% baked out. I have monthly recruitment workshops. I just started 2 months ago, so I've now facilitated 2. And every time the attendance goes up, because there's value around investing in your recruitment. Beyond that is the onboarding experience. So the turnover doesn't necessarily happen right away, right? It's in 30 days. The first 30 days are the most volatile, right, most sensitive time frame. So why? Well, again, if you're not prepared, if you lose your candidate in any part of the communication, they don't trust in you or your ability to get them to their training, they're going to be out. There's a lot of people hiring right now, every day, every industry, multiple companies, corporate franchises, doesn't matter. So why would they stick it out with you? So me really training, coaching, supporting the owners through that process, through how do I get my candidate through the finish line, get them through boot camp, and running essentially within 30 days. So I really focus on those parts, recruitment and onboarding.
That's tremendous. I mean, that's invaluable, especially for new business owners that are perhaps making a transition out of the corporate world and going into business for themselves for the very first time. So let's shift gears here. And, when you're a business owner, accountability is something that is very important, in having an entrepreneurial mindset. How do you help new line business owners in those areas? And what do you how do you guide them?
Yeah. I use a customized approach because every person's different as far as how they want to be held accountable. I pick up on, their triggers and how they want to be communicated with. For example, I was on a coaching call this morning and I was holding a franchise partner accountable to some action items, and I used the word deadline. And I said, you know what? That's not the best word. Let's shoot for this day as your goal to execute that item. And I'm just going to put it on the calendar for you and follow up with you on that day and see where we're at. Just knowing the personality type that I was dealing with, right? Is, these are very capable adults. So I know how franchise partners want to be spoken to. So there's the aspect of we're all adults and we can hold ourselves accountable. But the second part is if you can't, or you don't want to, or you tell me, Erica, I'm super unorganized. I need your accountability, which I have an owner who literally has a weekly call with me because he just wants me to hold him accountable. I will also do that. So it kind of goes back to getting to know my franchise partners and what they want. Do they want some guidance, some motivation, or do they want me to hold their hand and, text them on a daily basis? So I offer both approaches to the franchise partners. I think it's super important to give the franchise partners the level of support that they want and need.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, just meeting that owner where they are and how they need you is tremendous. And honestly, that is not a skill that comes easily to many people to be able to adjust to different personalities. And, from what I've witnessed from you, Erica, you are phenomenal in that area. So let me ask you, a lot of what we've talked about has been more support, how people reach out to you, these, through calls and weekly sessions and so forth. But there's also another aspect, and that is that you actually go into the field to work with new owners as well. Can you expand upon that for us?
Absolutely. So after we get our franchise partners through the GOCL, and then they go through their boot camps, they are left with prerequisites to me for field visits. So there are 2 field visits that we offer, not offer, that we execute. So field visit 1 is more around sales training, lead generation, etc. So I leave the franchise partners with the checklist. Here's how, everything you need to do in order for this field visit to be successful. Field visit 1 is scheduled. I fly out at times, depending on scheduling, might be a national success coach. Either way, a highly qualified person who is going to support you is coming directly to your market and essentially launching with you. So your first experience with, for example, sales presentations with customers will be with myself or again, a national success coach. So you can see it live and understand what it should look like, feel like, etc. Because, as much virtual training as we offer and do, the reality of the matter is real life is different. Social cues and body language and all the little details that you could never really see on camera. So that's field visit 1. Then we leave you with field visit 2 prerequisites. So, here's everything you need to do to meet, the field visit 2. And that one is around production. So your first 2 jobs that you produce will be with our guidance and support. And we're doing subcontractor vetting, interviewing with you and introducing you to your vendors. So connecting all the dots for you at that second field visit. And beyond that, franchise partners certainly can request for us to come out, as an additional, service and reevaluate their staff or their market. But frankly, I think those 2 field visits are extremely comprehensive and just make the franchise partners feel like, oh gosh, this was a great decision. I couldn't have done this on my own. And that's ultimately what I love to provide the franchise partners, is that feeling of, I'm so glad I did this, and I'm so happy they came out. That was awesome. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I've been a business owner myself, and I can tell you I've not ever had that level of support where, the corporate office has come on site to just walk me through everything, get me comfortable. So, again, that is one of the things that really appeals to me about the support that Lime provides. So, what would you say as a prospect is looking at lime painting and deciding perhaps between lime and another brand? What would you say, as far as feedback from current owners, is one of the most powerful things about lime and their happiness with the brand?
I would say that if the candidate is down to two brands and they're determining, which brand is going to be their future, I would encourage them to be very honest with how they feel with the team members, how the culture matches their lifestyle, their morals, their values. I know it probably sounds kind of like a very hippie answer, but it really comes down to, are we a good match energetically? Are we a good match with our values? Because ultimately, that's where your happiness is going to come from. Sure, we all want to see huge profit margins and financial success. But when it comes to your fulfillment and whether or not you feel like this was a good decision, it's all going to come down to that culture and that feel. That's what I know I can speak to as far as lime painting goes, and why I've been here now 1 year. The franchise partners were literally like family. It feels like family, even though we are a remote business essentially, but everyone's connected throughout the whole country. I know everyone by first name, their kids, they're, truly that culture, that feel that you just really don't get in many businesses anymore. So that'd be my answer, Stacie, is how do you feel? How do we make you feel? How does the brand make you feel?
I absolutely love that answer. And in speaking with one of the newer franchise owners, that was really the tipping block for him, was the culture at Lime. So for those that don't know, Lime stands for love, integrity, mission, and excellence. And, on a final note, Erica, uh, you mentioned the culture index earlier. We know that there's no right or wrong answer to that. But what attributes in a franchise partner have you found to lend itself to really being successful in this type of business?
So the two major things I've noticed, and quite a few of us in home office are certified in culture index and how to read the assessments. But my personal findings, there's two main things that really are, I guess, characteristics of a franchise partner who fits in very well early on. And I say fits in early on because that means, it could come later on for people as well, depending on how you learn and who you are. But I would say that rule followers, or someone with a little bit lower ingenuity, which sounds negative, it's not, meaning you don't want to recreate any wheels. You don't want to go nuts with creating systems every day and ideas, and you want to follow a system. So lower ingenuity, you tend to do really well in franchise brands, period. That's one of the most interesting things I coach franchise partners on is, okay, you bought into a franchise. Why? Because it's proven, it works. So you just have to learn it and execute the system. So, if you're someone that doesn't want to come in and design your own logo, and someone that doesn't want to figure out what to call this role and what the responsibilities are and what point of sale system to use, a franchise brand is fantastic for you. Just follow the model. So lower ingenuity is one. And the second thing would be, when I'm reading the culture index, there's two main charts. And the first one is just who you are naturally, how you're wired. And the second chart is what shows your characteristics in the job. And in the job, meaning you as an owner, your occupation. So if there's not a huge variation in how much energy, because the results will show you your energy units in how you're wired and how you perform in your work. If there's not a huge variation between the energy units it requires for you to do the role, I also see franchise partners do really well. What that means in turn is, naturally, does this role fit who I am, or do I have to change a lot to do this role? So if you don't have to change a lot, obviously this job's going to be less stressful for you, which means you're going to be, successful earlier on, in my opinion. So those are two things, is just, basically follow the system, being that disciplined personality. And number two, that this should not stress you out. No occupation, no business should stress you out to the point of, I'm so uncomfortable, I can't do this, it's debilitating, right? Not a good fit. So if this feels good to you, and I always go back to feel, it's one of my skill sets is my intuition and that feel, and finding that in the franchise partners. If it doesn't feel good, you're probably not going to perform very well. So that's what I look for, Stacie.
Wow, goodness. That was a much more in-depth answer. I was thinking you were just going to list off a couple attributes. So thank you. That was very,
the passion in me sometimes comes out, Stacie.
I love it. I love it. That's what makes you good at what you do. But absolutely following the model. I mean, the people that are going to be successful are the ones following the franchise model. The ones that go rogue, not so much. And those are the ones that are going to need your coaching skills a little bit more than the ones that are rule followers. Well, Erica, thank you so much. There's so many different brands out there. And again, the one thing that really drew me to Lime was the support that is given to the franchise partners throughout. I mean, from the time Meet the Team Day throughout the longevity of their franchise agreement. So thank you again for joining me.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. For anybody that is interested in learning more about Lime Painting franchise opportunities, please feel free to reach out to me at stacie@fusionfranchising.com. Thanks and have a great day.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe for more on the franchise life.